Is this a real business? That's a question that a lot of young entrepreneurs are likely to be asked, and a lot of them fumble upon answering this question for a number of reasons. The first is insecurity. A lot of young entrepreneurs see people that have these nice offices and this, and a beautiful setup, and a great website, a receptionist, and a business license, insurance, and it seems kind of overwhelming because they're just working out of their dinky little apartment. And people may say, well, why don't you get all that stuff set up? And you may go, oh, I just don't have the money. Oh, you don't have the money, so you're not a real business. Why would I ever leave my laptop with you? That's what I think of that. Now, a real business, to me, is not defined as a business that has licenses, insurance, employees, and a beautiful office. A real business, to me, is defined as an entrepreneur that treats their business as if it's real. It's that simple. Do you treat your business as if it's your livelihood? Yes? Okay, you have a real business. It's that simple. Don't feel insecure that you don't have everything that other real business owners have. Because let me tell you something, most businesses out there did not start with a $500,000 or $5 million or $50 million investment. When businesses start out with that investment, sure, they can get the license and the insurance and the tax ID and the expensive CPA and all this other crap and a beautifully remodeled office and a $20,000 website. It's very easy when you start out with all the money because you don't have to worry about what am I going to do to pay my rent next month? Or I don't even have the money to do 10% of those things, even if I didn't have to pay my rent this month. They don't have to worry about that. But they don't make up 99% of new businesses. They make up a very small percentage of new businesses. Most new businesses don't start with all that money. Most small businesses are started with pocket change that people have because they just got fired or they quit their job or they were forced to move someplace new and now they need to start over. And those businesses often start with not with the $2 million or the $200,000. They start with the 20 or the 200 or maybe $2,000. They start with nothing. And when you start with nothing, you may run a business differently than you would if you started with a lot of money. So if you start with nothing, if you start with $300, $350 to get a business license, $100 for some parts to set up somebody's air conditioner and a couple of tools. That's a better investment because if you put that money into the license, now, great, you have a license to do shit because you don't have any tools and you just spent the last of your money. In the beginning, I'm not saying avoid the IRS or licensing or the Department of Consumer Affairs or insurance because this will come back and fuck you. What I'm saying is in the beginning, it is okay if you say, let me put my limited resources into what I actually need to perform the services that I'm being asked to do instead of putting it into the fluff of licensing and regulation. When I see somebody who works in their apartment who doesn't have any of this, I don't think that's not a real business. What makes the business real is not the nice office, not the certificate of authority, not the fancy secretary and the pretty website. What makes a business real is that the entrepreneur treats their business as if it's real. It's that simple. Let's take two examples. Let's say somebody with a good $70,000 a year job wants to start a new business. He works from 9 to 5. He hangs out with his friends from 5 to 8. He hangs out with his family, maybe watching TV from 8 to 10. And from 10 to 10:30, he spends time on his business, and then he goes to sleep. He has a license, he has insurance, he has a certificate of authority, he has a decent-looking website. Now let's go over to the new entrepreneur. He doesn't have a license, he doesn't have a proper tax ID or a certificate of authority. He has, fairly crappy-looking WordPress template website. But he starts work at 9 a.m. and he ends it at 8. I consider the latter more of a real business than the former. If the first guy fucks me over, he doesn't really have much consequence. Like, okay, so my business has a slightly worse image. I still make $70,000 a year at my day job. The second guy, he doesn't have a license and he doesn't have all of the other aspects that a more legitimate business would have. But if he fucks me over and I decide to do something that hurts his business or his image, I'm hurting his livelihood. I'm not hurting the side project that he spends from 10 to 10:30 on. I'm actually hurting his ability to feed himself and to pay his own rent. The music industry used to really entertain me with these examples. There was a vocal coaching class at a studio that I was a technician at and they had a class late at night after the rooms were done with other paying clients. And so sometimes I would ask them, one of the people in the class, so what do you do? And they go, oh, I'm a model, I'm an actress, I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, I'm a writer, I'm a producer. And I would go, okay, so cool, so how do you support yourself? And they go, I'm a janitor. And that's just not really the way to do it. I'm not trying to insult people who want to pay their dues and accomplish something. What I'm saying is if you want to do something, then you really have to immerse yourself in that world. And the best way to immerse yourself in that world is to force yourself to make a living at it. I really, really wanted to be a good technician. So I had an internship at Avatar Studios, 40 hours a week for no money. And then I had a job at another recording studio after an internship that paid me about $7 to $10 an hour. So I worked 80 hours a week, and I came home with sometimes $400 to $600 for the month, which was literally just enough for me to feed myself. It wasn't the best, but after a year and a half's time, I started making a little more money because I found opportunities. When you live in your business or in your career, you find opportunities that you wouldn't find if you were treating it as a side business or just a project. And as a result, I got to learn a lot of things that allowed me to become a better technician, that allowed me to find other gigs, that allowed me to meet other business people, that allowed me to get here and have a business license and a certificate of authority and a $1,500 bill from the Hartford Insurance and all of the other things that come with being a legitimate business owner. So I define a legitimate business as somebody that simply dives into their business. I don't define it as somebody who has a license and a tax ID. And I don't think that you should either. When somebody asks you, is this a real business? Yes. Any other questions? Oh, so it's out of your apartment? Yes. Any other questions? So you give me a receipt? Maybe. Any other questions? Got it?